Thank you for joining us in our Universal Asian Voices Adoptee Voices Writing Group panel. It's great to see everyone. Before we begin, I would just like to give you a brief introduction about the Universal Asian in case this is your first time with us, or just refresh about who we are. My name is Tara. I am the founder of the platform. The Universal Asian is an open and safe online platform aiming to provide inspiration to Asian adoptees and hyphenated Asians around the world. We strive to mainstream discussions on any and every topic that helps make our community of Asian voices universally heard. It is our aim to bring people together. So please feel free to reach out to us if you would like to be interviewed, or you want to share something of your own, or even collaborate on a future event like this. So just a reminder that this event is being recorded. All of you should have ticked your consent or request to be edited if you registered through Eventbrite. So please participate freely either way, and we will be responsible for any edits accordingly. If you do have any questions as we go along, you can raise your hand using the reactions at the bottom of the Zoom taskbar, or feel free to type them into the chat box, and I will be monitoring those as we go along. And when we have the Q&A time, I'll share your questions, or you're welcome to ask them yourselves. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Alice to introduce herself and the Adoptee Voices Writing Group.
Thank you very much, Tara, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to showcase some of our writers. I've had a preview, and I think everybody here is in for a real treat. But I wanted to start off. Oh, and thank you very much for having such a great publication for the Asian diaspora to go to and making a community for us. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So I wanted to start off by introducing Sarah Easterly, who is the founder of Adoptee Voices Writing Group. Sarah contacted me. It was even less than a year ago, Sarah. I can't believe it. She contacted me about, I guess, maybe February, I don't know. And so I just want to give her an opportunity to say why she did this, how she did this, just kind of explain, introduce and explain Adoptee Voices Writing Group.
Okay, thank you, Alice. I know, I can't believe it hasn't even been a year, and we haven't met in person, but Alice feels like one of my very best friends. So it's, yeah, it's the pandemic has had some wonderful outcomes with you know, the way that we've brought together. So many of us have come together online and just been able to build community this way. So yeah, so basically we, I had the idea to do this about a year ago, to start a writing group. I've been in writing groups myself for a couple of decades, and was in a writing group that started during the pandemic online in a very similar format. But I kept thinking, I would really like to do something like this specifically for adoptees. I just kind of had this whisper, and just things started to line up, that, you know, first I had someone that I knew ask me if I knew of any writing groups for adoptees. And I was like, oh, funny, you should ask. I have one in mind. I've been thinking about that. And then, you know, just started thinking of who would I want to do that with, and how would this come together? And I heard Alice Stevens on a podcast, the Adoptees On podcast, and talking about her book, Famous Adopted People. And everything she said just made me think Alice is the one. Like, I want to talk to Alice. She needs to be one of the facilitators. And so I did reach out to Alice, and was so delighted when that you said yes. And then we had a couple of other facilitators. and so it kind of happened with just a jumping in, just trusting what are we building. But once we came together, we started shaping what adoptees would look like. And really, the goal is to elevate our voices. With adoptions, it usually happens at a very young age before we have words to understand our experience. We have the emotions. And we have other people telling us our stories and making sense of adoption and relinquishment for us. And it's not always in congruency with how we feel and what we experience. So the whole purpose is to help us find our own voices and support everybody in finding their voices. And sharing that perspective. There's also a lot of cliches, and there's been a lot of damage done in how adoption gets presented in mainstream culture. Again, because it doesn't really represent those of us with lived experiences. So the whole point is to help us just to create a safe and supportive space so that everybody can find out what it meant to them and express that in a place where they're not going to be told, oh, you aren't grateful enough, or this is wrong, and it's not that, it's this. So that's our aim, and it's been really life-giving for us too, and I hope for everybody who participates, because every time we see each other show up in big ways and hear from stories, it just continues to just give back to everybody in the room, and including us, just realizing our commonalities and the nuances of each of our experiences too. So that's how it came to be.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to read your bio, so I'm going to read it now. Adoptee Voices founder Sarah Easterly is the author of the award-winning memoir, Searching for Mom. She's written for Dear Adoption, Feminine Collective, Psychology Today, and others. Sarah led the Western Washington chapter of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators and was recognized as SCBWI Member of the Year. And she's the doing this Adoptee Voices Writing Group is major, Sarah. I think that it's really, I just feel like it's been such a great contribution to the community. One of my purposes for joining this was to have the mainstream recognize our narratives, to get people confident enough to start submitting to mainstream publications so that our voices get out there and are not dominated. We're not dominated by people who are in the mainstream now and who are dominating the conversation. So without further ado, do you have anything else you want? Oh, and I did want to say, sorry, my mind's all over the place, that the Adoptee Voices Writing Group has grown. We started out with just one group a week, and now there are two separate groups. One is writing as an emotional playground, and one is writing for craft and publication. And we have readers from both cohorts here. We have people at Adoptee Voices Writing Group who have participated in every single session. We are now on our fourth. It's a mini holiday session. We have people who come back. So Sarah, you've really done something for the community. So thank you very much for that. So without further ado, I want to get to our adoptee writers. We have 8 of them. As Sarah said, this is a safe space for people to articulate their thoughts about adoption, and by articulating it to better help understand their journey. So sometimes we go to some dark and heavy places, and I want to tell everybody who's listening that there's some trigger warning, content warning. So just be aware that we're going to address things like abuse and suicidal ideation and other things like that. Okay, so let's get started with our first reader. Her name is Amy Kim Waski. She's a Korean American adoptee and actor. She has performed in theaters across the country and internationally. Favorite plays include Revenge Song, Geffen Playhouse, Macbeth, OSF, Viet Gone, Seattle Rep, and the White Snake Fusion Festival. For more about Amy, visit her website at amykimw.com. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Alice. For years, I had put off learning Korean. It wasn't offered at my high school, so I opted for French, a language I have only used twice in my life. Quel dommage, n'est-ce pas? When I turned 40, I took an introductory Korean language class in New York. It was Monday nights at a YMCA on the Lower East Side. You could smell the chlorine from the pool in the classroom upstairs, which had a simple whiteboard at the front, several rows of long tables, and a gathering of students from all over the world, China, India, Denmark, you name it. My teacher, a soft-spoken man named Bom Yi, started us with vowels, consonants, and numbers, later simple phrases that one might use in day-to-day life. 안녕하세요, 저는 Amy입니다. Hello, my name is Amy. Sunnyside에서 살아요. I live in Sunnyside. 이게 주사예요? 네, 주사예요. Is this juice? Yes, it's juice. I often felt shy in class or perpetually confused by the Hangul on the board. When Lee Sung-nim called on me, I struggled to respond. I felt such incredible shame that my fellow classmates, many of them trilingual, could so effortlessly speak a mother tongue that baffled one of its native daughters. This shame, being Korean, but not being able to express myself in Korean, I always carry it with me. I feel it most acutely when people find out I'm Korean, and I say find out as if I'm trying to keep my background a secret, and often I am. I'm trying to pass as a native Korean speaker, someone familiar with the language and culture, because the questions that come when you don't pass are so invasive, insensitive, and frankly, nobody's business. How many hundreds of times have I heard, "Oh, you're Korean?" Yes, I was adopted from Korea, and then have to brace myself for the inevitable next questions. Do you speak Korean? Have you been back to Korea? Have you ever looked for your birth parents? No, yes, no. When inside, my shame spiral is pushing a flush to my cheeks, tears to my eyes, and sweat from my glands. I want to scream, can't you let me be? Can't you just let me be me? Part of me desperately wants to run from that shame, let my strong legs carry me to the point of exhaustion so I don't feel anything anymore, empty and impervious to shame. Part of me wants to sink into it, let it wrap itself around me, feel sorry for myself, uprooted, ripped from my homeland and home language. I used to be a personal assistant for a very wealthy woman on the Upper East Side. She would go to therapy at an office on 67th Street and then stroll home, stopping in at Barney's, Marnie, and Vince on the way. She'd walk through the door with thousands of dollars in clothing, still blue from therapy, and say, I feel so sorry for myself. Don't you feel sorry for me? I adopted that phrase. I feel so sorry for myself. If she, with all her privilege, could be so unhappy, then I supposed I could be too. The first time I thought about killing myself, I was 11. My younger sister read my diary and confronted me, terrified I might actually do it. I suppose she understood that pull of shame too. She was gay in a family that couldn't initially accept it, my parents insisting it was a phase. She's not gay. Her life will be so hard if she's gay. I think they took the same approach with me. And why shouldn't they? When I was adopted, the agency encouraged my parents to assimilate me as much as possible. Much like my sister, I think they thought, her life will be so hard if she's different. And so they took care to impress their German-American heritage on me. With each passing year, I find myself more and more comfortable with my adoption and who I am. And while I still brace myself for the questions that come with being a transracial adoptee, I find that I navigate these conversations with more compassion, both for the curious and myself. I moved to LA recently, and I've been thrilled to have more access to Korean culture, food, and language classes. I've also joined a community of adoptee writers whose stories and life experiences resonate deeply with me. I embrace it all. 저는 Amy입니다.
and I'm a Korean American adoptee.
Thank you. I'm not going to say powerful after everyone because that's, but yeah, this is lovely. Thank you. That was really great. Okay, our next reader is Heather Lewis. Heather Lewis is a Korean adoptee. While her adopted parents are deceased, she has found her 6 biological sisters through 23andMe. She spent 10 years teaching middle school English and then moved to Austin, Texas to work for Apple supporting educational sales. She enjoys reading and traveling.
Thank you. Title of my piece is My Face Does Not Match Me. Moon face. I have a really big round moon face. I never really considered my face until the boys at school wanted to point out that my face was flat. So I was then known as flat face. I added this to the list of taunts that already fired at me like missiles. Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees, look at these, ching chong. I used to wish I could change my face to be small and petite, that the large bridge of my nose wasn't so protruding and my cheeks weren't fat, flat tortillas on either side of my nose. I wanted blonde hair that was light and fluffy. You could spray that hair with hairspray and it was actually stayed in place. My thick, dark hair refused to curl, always straight an hour after I got to school. Those rag curls my mother put in my head, futile. My mom said I was pretty, but no one cares what their mom says. Moms have to think you're pretty. They're blinded by love. My eyes have monolids. It's where the top lid doesn't roll back into the eye socket. Instead, it curls up and under and folds on top of itself like an accordion fan. That means if you put thick black eyeliner on, it's going to smudge and disappear under your top lid, and you end up looking like a raccoon. The discount version of a smoky eye. Oh, and heaven forbid you smile big or close your eyes tight when you laugh. Your eyeliner ends up on top of your fat tortilla cheeks. My ears connect to my head funny. There's no real distinction between my cheek and my lobe. The bottom of my ear just sort of blends into my face like a merge lane. There's no cute round lobe on the side of my head, just a little triangular flap of skin I got pierced when I was 8 at a mall kiosk in Indiana. The holes aren't even. My unicorn earrings would always sit weird, dipping lower than the other. The real crux of the 6-word memoir is that my face, this awkward Korean-looking face, does not match me. My face doesn't represent who I am inside. People don't know me, look at my face, and make a lot of assumptions. They assume I'm Asian of some sort. They assume my face is Korean if they're a good guesser. Some people assume I don't speak English, that broken English should come out of my mouth, or that I'll speak a language that sounds like pots and pans falling down the stairs, as a racist joke goes. When I was a greeter at Olive Garden in college, an older woman complimented me on my English, saying I spoke English well. I said, well, I do since I've been here since I was 6 months old. I thought I was American. I grew up in America. I ate American food. My lunch was Chef Boyardee. My family drove through McDonald's and my parents' favorite restaurant was Cracker Barrel. I spoke English, yet my face would say otherwise. My face came with baggage that wasn't mine. My face gave some people permission to think they knew a part of me. When this happens, you're constantly trying to prove that you are something that you're not, or trying to prove that that you are someone or something. How many times did I overcompensate for this? Did I speak extra American-like? I tried to do all the American things like cheerleading or ballet to show how white I was. I dated the white boy in high school, and to be fair, there was only one Asian boy in my high school, so choices were limited. I think I've spent a lifetime trying to combat my outward appearance instead of accepting its natural part of what makes me me. Acceptance is what we crave so much in our youth, but yet we tend to find it much later in adulthood. I wish acceptance had come earlier. I wish I'd given myself permission to feel like the outsider, but had the confidence to know I really did belong. I know my face does not match who I am inside, but now I know it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Very nice. I just wanted to mention a six-word memoir is how we begin each session. I ask every adoptee to give us their six-word memoir, and that was instigated by Ridge, who is the third facilitator, who is not here today, but he has a documentary called Six Word Adoption Memoir, and that is kind of the icebreaker that we do for the beginning of each session. Thank you, Heather. That was really powerful. Okay, next reader is Haiku Kwan, aka Laura Cruz, a Korean-born adoptee, writer, and wanderluster who loves dogs, weightlifting, food, and connecting with others. She's learned that home isn't always a place. Sometimes it's a moment. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Alice. I have 3 poems I'm going to read. The first one is titled Little Things. Heavy childhood memories, anxiety and fear, drown joy, negative bias, just life. Struggling, stumbling, stuttering, elusive words. There's got to be more. A light in the dark, hope and despair. Grandma burst in. I brought Frosties and French fries. A salty sweet combination, providing fast food comfort and care when mom could not. Cinnamon sugar toast in the morning, black tea full of cream and more sugar. Pretending to be an adult. Coffee and life are too bitter. Grandma offers a taste of sweetness. A light in the dark, hope and despair. Little things. There's nothing bigger. The second piece is titled Saccharine Reduction. Life story, leaking out in forced spurts, unwilling to flow into a free fall, unsure of where it will land, if it lands at all. An endless game of Russian roulette, the gun always loaded, the trigger continuously pulled. You can't always dodge the bullet. Darkness, drenched in humor, painted with inspiration, made palatable for those not used to the bitterness, sugar-coated in platitudes, a saccharine reduction, pleading for just a taste of understanding. And the final piece is titled, What's in a Name? What's in a name? A name. My name. What's in my name? Does a name change a face? A life? A destiny? Does a name give value or take it away? Does a name define a person, their character, the personality? Kwan Mi-hwa, the abandoned child, identity erased, unknown parents, too poor to provide the peace of abortion. 3 older sisters were all they could manage. Laura Sue Baumgardner, adopted, adored Asian doll baby, her middle name, her adoptive mother's first, given an effort to make her feel included. She was filling the hole a dysfunctional closed womb left in its wake. One biological baby wasn't enough. Haiku Kwan, broken, suicidal, lost mess of a girl. Her coffee shop colleague and brother-like friend foresaw a future in a dream that held more than eating disorders, cutting, and overdosing. A haiku, short, like her, 17 syllables containing 17 years, with more to follow. There's more to come, little sister. Better things are out there for you. Kwan Hyo-jin, the abandoned child. Her parents needed the salvation only a male could provide. Hyo-jin means filial piety. Her father's wishes inscribed in the name the adoption agency chose to ignore. He desperately hoped she wouldn't resent their devastating decision. Laura Sue Cruz, married woman, still hanging on. Her friend was right all those years ago. There was more than darkness. So her story continues on. What's in my names?
Thank you. Yeah, names are so important. And thank you very much for that, for all three of those poems. Our next reader is Kayla Zhang. Kayla is a transracial adoptee from China who was taken by a white family living in the USA. She has dived into the work of advocating for adoptee rights, leveraging education to uplift adoptees' unfiltered stories, and works to dismantle institutions and cycles of exploitation in adoption. Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you. I'll start. I stare at him, well, more specifically at a neon sign lazily flickering behind him. A large pitcher of margarita soaked a ring around the picnic table as I waited for him to start talking and asking why he wanted to meet me. He finally looked up from staring out adjacent to the park. I still see you as a sister. You're my sister, and I love you, and you don't have to accept that. Confused and not sure where to start or why I'm even at a park staring across from a white man who I've not seen or spoken to in years. What does that even mean? Sister, such a funny word for a relationship that is as artificial and manufactured by an industry trying to make a buck. I say again, what is it to you if we are siblings? We have not spoken in years. Why did you want to contact with me and meet again? He looked around nervously, my blank stare causing him to shift in his seat, eyes telling me that he is scrambling for something to say. I impatiently bite my nails, waiting for him to finish his thought. He leans closer and lowers his voice. You know, with everything happening in the world, with everything going on, no one is safe, and I'm reminded just how important family is. I feel the margarita burn as I almost shoot it back up my throat. I cough, but I'm able to choke out a few sarcastic laughs. How important family is? We have not seen nor spoken to one another in years, and you come out of the blue to disrupt my life to tell me how important family is to you? Is this a joke? My heart mocks him as I look at this poor white boy, confused as he's trying to figure out what he said wrong. Rather than recognize how absurd the whole situation is, and that is only a repeat of the summer of 2020. And now he called me one day to see how I was doing with the rise of anti-Asian hate. As if he didn't laugh and participate months earlier on how I must eat cats because I am Asian at the last and only family Zoom call I was on. Shocked at the first time that he recognized that maybe his little Asian sister, who was 11 years younger than him, living in a white world, might have lived a different life than a white man living in a world created by and for him. I bite back all the ferocity in my voice and gently seethe out. You do not care about family. You are being a basic white bitch boy who wants to cross all his T's and dot his I's to make himself feel good about not being racist. You pulled the same shit in 2020, finally admitting that white privilege exists after a Black man is murdered on television, finally admitting that all people are not treated equally in a white man's world that you benefit from to this day, after hate crimes towards people that look like me rise over 150%. You don't give a damn about family or me. That should be obvious when I spent over an hour educating you on adoption industrial complex and gave you articles and videos to watch over only for you to do nothing, not even view them. You do not give a damn about me. That should have been obvious when I can't remember the last time I saw you. Go back to your suburban white picket fenced-in home and your trust fund baby white wife who loves to parade around non-white bodies as proof that she is diverse and can't be racist. We will not be repeating 2020 performative wokeness.
Yeah, thank you, Kayla. You got the fire. Very nice. Okay, our next reader is Lindsay Logan Giuliano is a queer transracial Korean American adoptee who serves as a continuing lecturer of rhetoric and writing at the University of California, Los Angeles. She is currently producing a hypertext that blends theories of adoptee objection and autopoiesis with personal narrative and illustration. That was very multisyllabic. You really challenged me there, Logan.
Tried that. You know, gotta do a little testing, teacher. All right, thank you. Often brassy, percussive, and proud, anthems are commonly associated with nationalism. As a citizen, even if I can't hit the high notes, I can absolutely sing my inquiry about the United States flag's visibility at dawn. On an intellectual level, I struggle with the rhetoric of the land of the free and the home of the brave, with ever-unfolding histories of land loss and conquest. Yet I understand an anthem's primary function: to create and define communities, to unify a message of collectivity. I heard the Adoptee Voices anthem 8 times between September and October of this year. Each week, we adoptees gathered to write, whether it was to explore emotional processing or to develop a work intended for publication. After a period of bum and chair accountability, we shared what we wrote as a weekly accordance. Our 3 mentors, Sarah, Alice, and Ridgehouse, took turns reciting the ground rules, community care, and self-care guidelines to provide social structure to our engagement. These ground rules are, for example, that all participants identify as an adoptee, respect each other's writing through citation, and take breaks as needed to care for ourselves. The act of reading those ground rules create a safe space for those who, for whatever duration, were once robbed of security. The guidelines themselves directed our constellation of unique personalities and lived experiences without the need for bombs bursting above us. An ideal worth manifesting. This is a needed space, and I needed this space. Rejection, exposure, and vulnerability lead to uncomfortable emotions for many, particularly adoptees and writers. I identify with the professional and interpersonal fears that have silenced many writers and adoptees. Even here, I've heard my voice crack and tremble. But the comfortably predictable recitation puts boundaries around our adoptee writer community. Reiterating them each week reminds us that we are agents of safety and nurturers of each other's potential. Anthem resonates here as an opening ritual, even if the guidelines aren't set to music. The earliest forms of the word refer to a composition sung in alternate parts, verse-response, and songs of praise or gladness. Our opinions on the day's headlines are unknown, but our stories bear emotional harmony. We create a vocal anthology, humbly offered to each other as ongoing works in progress. I have been fortunate to hear the diverse range of stories and voices from the people who opt to spend their Wednesdays courageously co-creating this protective circle. I am grateful to everyone who spent time with me and each other prior to when I joined the community. Their voices set the tone, the bar, the beat, and I've been honored to join the chorus. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan. That's like our manifesto. I really love that. And I love that you have explained for people, which I didn't do, what we do every week at the Adoptee Voices Writing Group. We get together, have a short meeting at the beginning. We're given a prompt. Then the writers have about an hour and a half to write. Then we get back together and everybody, we go into small groups and people share their writing and we critique. And then we get back together into a big group for our final big topic discussion. So thank you for detailing that for everybody. Our next reader is Rebecca Cheek. Rebecca Cheek is a Korean American adoptee living in South Carolina. She's a peace seeker striving to live life yogically. She is currently taking a pause in her professional career to raise her children and trying to figure out what she wants to do when she really grows up.
Thank you, Alice. This piece is called Reflections from Adoptee Voices. With a racing heart, a swirling stomach, shallow breathing, and shaky hands, I clear my throat and begin reading. These are the physiological responses I had before I read my writing piece during week 1 of the Adoptee Voices Writing Group. As I reflect on the past 8-week adventure, I'm filled with gratitude for the instant connections made with other adoptees, the safe space to share my words, and the openness and vulnerability of other adoptees sharing their stories. The reasons I joined the writing group are therapeutic in nature, a positive coping mechanism. I was trying to find another approach to start the process of healing. I wanted a more structured way to express my feelings and my memories. My reasons for joining are still the same. However, now I have the confidence and can acknowledge that my words matter, that I count, and that I'm enough, even if I don't have my shit together all the time. I've learned some things about myself that I did not realize before, such as I am a sensitive person, not hardened by my past. I also learned that mindful listening is a skill that I do not always use but should. By actively listening to the writings of others, my own life experiences have been validated in a way I had not understood until now. I have also learned some things about being a part of a group with similar life stories. I learned that support means everything. Our collectively shared pain and trauma that comes along with adoption does not have to define us. It gives us a starting point for healing so that we can move forward and live our lives to our fullest potential. I learned that giving feedback requires practice. Receiving feedback is meaningful for my writing, even if I never publish the next great memoir. The care and positive intention we have for each other when we share our feedback helps us all to grow and become effective writers and communicators. The beauty of participating in the writing group is that this is just the beginning for me. I will continue to record my feelings and my memories while exploring other genres and writing styles. It took 8 weeks for me to say this out loud, but I am a writer. We are all writers. I might always have a racing heart, a swirling stomach, shallow breaths, and shaky hands, but when I read my words, I'm a writer in good company. My words matter, our words matter, and I cannot wait to see where our writing takes us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. That just gives me chills. You are a writer. You are all writers. And, you know, just putting it down on paper makes you a writer. But yes, thank you very much. And thank you also for highlighting that we do give feedback to each other, and that is a really important part too. Not only does it validate what we've written, but we also try to gently make suggestions for improvements for the works, because these are just starting points for we're hoping people will develop their writing, that they write in their prompts and go on to revise and submit at places. Thank you, Rebecca. Our next reader is Sarah Streeter. Hai Suk Han is a Korean American transracial adoptee in Reunion since 2017. After a 10-year career in interior design, she left the industry and currently works in volunteer management. Sarah writes flash nonfiction and is working on her first novel. She lives in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Hi, thanks for coming. 2 things. Don't judge me because I'm in my basement, so it looks terrible in here. And The other thing is that this is not necessarily adoption related because we can write about anything we want. It's called Brood X. We wait in anticipation for the humming to begin. Tiny vibrations colliding into a trill louder than a vacuum cleaner. Finally, one bright day in May, after 17 years underground, hundreds of Brood X cicadas appear on our Maryland lawn almost overnight. I scoop up every live cicada I find clinging to the thick blades of grass and overgrown clover. They look at me with strange red-orange eyes, their crystalline wings often folded, sometimes mangled. I stand still as a tree and watch these creatures crawl up my arm, their tiny, sticky legs tickling my skin. In May 2021, we find ourselves in a joyful season of emergence from isolation. Watching the cicadas come out into the world, I feel a connection. After my own hibernation, I'm anxious to show off the thick, natural eyebrows I grew back during the state lockdown and the new outfits I bought to comfort myself during dark days of refrigerated trailers filled with bodies. My daughter is also transitioning back into the world from the cocoon we wrapped around her. She's unlearning socially distanced hugs and remembering how to make friends. After preschool, we walk hand in hand to see the cicadas in our yard. Today, she finally stretches out her finger and touches one's wings. "Hey, little guy, I'm being gentle," she whispers to it, mimicking the way I talk to them. I bring cicadas to her in my hands and we carefully place them on the trees. Watching them crawl down toward the roots, we tried them. "Where are you going, buddy? You gotta go up." When I find cicadas whose bodies have been ravaged by the white fungus, I cradle them gently. Some are nothing but a head and wings. Others' lower bodies are cigarettes turned to ash. I wonder if they know the fungus has destroyed their chances of mating, and after surviving nearly 2 decades in the dark, they will die alone. In a worldwide pandemic, how do we make sense of days and months without normal ways of life? I feel the tension of my life being lived at 2 simultaneous paces of time, one going far too fast and the other slogging by. Through lockdowns and fear, we waited patiently through long, slow days to reunite with family and friends. What we didn't realize was that during that time, nothing happened, yet everything did, and life and relationships were not the same as we left them in February 2020. At the same time, I feel the days slip far too easily into years, and I'm desperate for them to linger, hoping to sink into a moment with my daughter while she's still a toddler, or stretch out a laugh with my aging parents. In the blink of an eye, 17 years will have passed, and I can't help but wonder, who will we be when the cicadas return? Will we be here at all? On a FaceTime call with my 76-year-old mother from her home in Pennsylvania, she reminisces to me about the elementary school boys throwing cicada shells at the girls on the playground. "It feels like yesterday. Ugh, those shells really hurt." I can't help but giggle, imagining her in pigtails and bobby socks running away from those boys, who are now old men. "I hope we see the cicadas this year," my mom continues, referring to her and my 81-year-old father. "We won't be here the next time they come out." I do quick calculations. If my mom lived to see the cicadas in 2038, she would be 93. My father, 98. It's possible they'll be around, but unlikely. My throat catches. "I hope you see them this year too, Mom," is all I can manage. In 17 years, when the Brood X cicadas return, my daughter will be 20 and I will be 55. I hope she'll remember this year of the cicadas, the year we stopped fearing each other and were able to be together again. May their songs, remind her of my parents. I'm sorry. And playing under our 7-year-old silver maple trees. May we always have a feeling of awe for the cicadas' beautiful life cycle. And sorry. Sorry. I'm done.
Okay, Sarah, it's okay. Thank you. I think we all feel that. The cicadas, yeah, they came out, and I thought I saw kind of like an adoptee metaphor in them too, just people coming out of their shells and you know, finally the massing too, because I feel like adoptees were massing finally and we're coming out of our shells. And definitely the 17 years, oh my gosh, it does make you look and think about time. And time is, oof, Time, I mean, for everybody, time's a big deal, but I think for adoptees, especially when we think about, you know, everything in the past that we can't recapture. It's heavy. Thank you so much, Sarah. And this happens a lot at Adoptee Voices Writing Group. We cry a lot, and it's great. You know, it's freeing. It is for me anyway. Thank you very much for that. So that brings the end to our readings. I want to thank all of the readers for showing up. It takes a lot of courage, I know, to articulate this, to come out and make public your words. As adoptees, we are so used to deferring to other people and other people's words and what they want to hear about our stories. And I know that it takes just a lot of courage to put your vulnerable soul out there and you know, be voices in the darkness for other people. So thank you very much. Sarah, would you like to add anything before we open up to the panelists and see if they have anything to say?
You said it so perfectly, Alice. I will just echo what you just said, and the courage to share your hearts, to share your words, that you've worked so hard on those words too. I'm really inspired and emotionally moved, and I think I'm going to go have a good cry after this in a good way because I feel my heart. It's going. So thank you. Thanks to every one of you.
So I would just like to open it up to the panelists. If any of you would like to just say why you joined or what you have gotten from the experience, or anything that you'd like to say about Adoptee Voices Writing Group, we would love to hear it. And I just want to say that it has changed my life. It really has, and it's been so wonderful for me. So thank you everybody who's participated. You got me through the pandemic. That was for sure. Anybody? Amy, thank you.
So, you know, I think for so much of my life, I just wasn't ready to address my adoption. I was, I just couldn't go there, and it would pop up in like not great ways in my life. Like the angst I felt about it would bubble up in like kind of destructive ways, and I just am so grateful for the writing group because it gives you a structure, and just to have to hear people's stories and have their experiences reflect back to you that, oh, they felt exactly the same way, or they had something so similar happen to them. And man, we need that. We need representation so that we don't feel alone. And I think that's how a lot of us feel, because often we are, maybe the only ones in our families or communities, or, so it's been incredibly helpful for me to process my adoption. And also, I've just enjoyed writing, which is not something that I've done before. So I feel like, oh, well, this is another like aspect of my, my artist self, which I'm really grateful for. So thank you, Sarah and Alice. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Amy. And it's true. I mean, we have so many creative people too. And I don't know if it just seems like adoptees a lot of adoptees are creative. And is it because of our circumstances? I don't know, that we want to make sense of our world through art. But, a lot of you here today have said that Amy, you're an actor. I know Rebecca's an artist. Everybody has the other creative outlets, which I think is wonderful. Would anybody else like to say? Oh, yay. Let's go with Heather first and then Laura.
Thanks. So I actually have a major in English and used to write a lot, and I taught high school and middle school English. I do have a theater background as well. And then life happened and I stopped writing for a long time. So with the onset of finding my biological family, and it was a lot to take in. I really felt like I needed to get back to writing as an expression. And when I saw this pop up on Facebook, I was like, oh my gosh, here's a group of people who I most likely will relate to. And I was on the Monday groups. And what I also loved about it was I am used to being and hanging with a lot of the Korean adoptees, which I do love. But I love that it's really opened up a world for adoptees in general and how much we have in common and connect with that. And I really love that that's broadened my view of adoption, and the similarities and the negative similarities seem to really be a lot of the same for both, which is really interesting. But thank you for having this opportunity and having this group and being able to express myself and start to make sense of this new world around me. I've lost my adoptive parents a couple of years ago, very tragically. And then to find the biological family, it's been kind of a trip. So it's nice to be able to have a way to express it.
Like Heather, I also have an English degree, but unlike Heather, I did nothing with it. I used to write a lot as well, but after a bunch of trolls ripped into my writing, I had stopped for the past 10 years. But that said, the past several years have shown me how essential having a supportive community is. And so I had started seeking out more Asian and adoptee specific spaces because, like we had talked about, I was surrounded by people who didn't share my reality. And so finding Adoptee Voices, it gave me a safe space to write and speak about just some of the most vulnerable, raw parts of my life. Like, this group knows about things in my life that my family doesn't even know about. And they really contribute to my healing instead of giving me more things to heal from. And it's priceless to have the opportunity to be surrounded by adoptees who all possess like just profound consideration and compassion and empathy, and all just contributing to this safe space that Logan had talked about so much in her piece. But it's also nice, like we had talked about, we don't have to decorate our trauma or make it seem pretty for everybody. We can share our truths as they are. And this group has just really helped show me that I'm strong on my own, but I don't have to be alone anymore.
Oh, that was my agreement.
You're clapping. Okay, sorry.
But okay.
I'm just putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I should next time I use a different emoji. But yes, I really could echo what everyone was saying, and I could relate to what so many of my peers have been sharing and what Adoptee Voices have meant to me. And so really, I think one of the biggest takeaways is I have such a hard time calling myself a writer, but then after this course and this class, I felt more comfortable with that label. And then in that, what Adoptee Voices has really helped was expanding my horizons in the writing styles, the prompts, and the different different prompts that led me as an adoptee to really ask myself different questions. And that was a very important growth for me and looking at my work. And I realized, I didn't know I felt so strongly about that. Or there were moments after I wrote a piece, I was like, I really didn't think that bothered me, but clearly like I have issues on this particular topic, which I can go back and look over and take that time. So Adoptee Voices, I want to echo what everyone else says, but also with like the healing process and in finding things out about yourself that you didn't think that was there, or that you had healed from, or that you hadn't really given much thought to. And then, that just that whole that gift to me, and hopefully that other adoptees can relate to it as well.
Thank you, Kayla. I'm so sorry for putting you on the spot. It's like every adoptee's worst nightmare. But thank you. And you articulated it so beautifully. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay, well, I would like to open it up to questions from the audience. If anybody has questions, I know we're going a little over time, so, but if you have questions, we're here. We'd love to answer them. Or if anybody else from Adoptee Voices who's in the group wants to talk, we'd love to hear your questions. Okay, well, we don't want to put you on the spot. I know questions sometimes take a while to get going, but I did want to, say that, like Rebecca said, it's great we are not just for Asian adoptees or Korean adoptees. Adoptee Voices is open to all people who self-identify as adoptees, and that doesn't just mean adopted people. It means people are fostered, or anybody who has been displaced from their genetic family. So it's great to get the chorus of voices. And as Rebecca said, we're all connected. We all have that one thing in common, and it's huge. It's a huge thing to have in common. Okay, so Tara,
can you let people know how they could find out more, or what kind of, like, if they wanted to join, or?
Oh, okay. Yes, we have a website. I should have had that up to put it in the link. And we are right now in the middle of our holiday session, which is for just a short mini session for people to get through the holidays, which it can be a tough time for many of us. Our next session starts, our winter session, which will be 8 weeks long, starts January, I don't know what. Do you know, Sarah?
Off the top of my head, I want to say January 3rd, but it's all on our website, and registration is open right now for the winter session. And actually, there's still time to squeeze into the holiday session too. We have a group that starts on this coming Monday for the Monday writers, and then the Wednesday group you've only missed one. So if it's of interest, there's still a chance to come to that, and some people come to both. I'm looking at some of them right now. So that's an option too, if more writing time.
And they're 8-week sessions. They meet once a week on Wednesdays from 7 p.m. EST to 10 p.m. EST. And we meet at 7, we kind of have a short introduction. We go through the ground rules, as Logan said, introduce the prompt. At this point, we have 3 prompts. One is a written prompt, one is a visual prompt, and one is just work on your project, your long-term project. The writers will write for an hour and a half or so, and then we break into small groups. We read our writings to each other, critique, get together into a big group, and end the meeting. And it's almost pretty much every week after we're done, I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I just lived through that. That is so amazing. It's 10 p.m. my time, but I'm like, oh, I can't go to bed. So I usually finish off with a big, huge bowl of ice cream.
I just wanted to say also, our Monday groups are a little bit more focused on writing as an emotional playground. So we also, in addition to what Alice just said, we have a warm-up activity and try to tap into our inner child. And on Mondays, it's facilitated by Jennifer Diane Ghostin and Kate Murphy and myself. So a slightly different flavor, but in terms of how we approach it. The discussions are less about submitting and craft and publication, and more about just creativity as a whole. And so, I think for those of you who go to both days, they are similar, but we try to have it a little bit different too. And Alice, can I just say a huge thank you to you for organizing this and coming up with the idea for this and bringing everybody together for this day. This was so moving. As you know, we talked about it. We're open to everybody, but we haven't ever had an opportunity to just specifically highlight our Asian-born writers. And this was magical. It was really good. Such a wonderful opportunity to elevate your voices and to hear from every one of you. And I hope Alice and I got a bit excited after our run through the other night, thinking we could do this for so many other subgroups within Adoptee Voices. And I think we probably will. This felt really good. So Alice, kudos to you. Thank you tremendously. And Tara, thanks for hosting us.
Yeah. Thank you, Tara. Tara communicated with me, so it worked out well. Yay to the adoptee community. We get things done, talk to each other, we communicate, we network, we're getting our voices out there. The more of us that are together, the louder our voices, and we're going to take over the whole fucking world. And Tina had a good point. We do have an e-zine, which I should get that, which highlights everybody, people who submit. I can't do two things at once. People who submit to the, so we have an e-zine that people who have written for the cohorts will submit to at the end of the session, and then we produce an e-zine. And thank you, Rebecca. The link is there. So please take a read. You'll find a lot more pieces, and you'll just get a really good idea of what's being written in our group.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you. On a personal level, I wish this kind of group had existed when I was growing up. And this kind of activity and community is exactly the reason why I started the Universal Agent. So I've really enjoyed being able to hear others' words, and even though the purpose of the Universal Agent is to bring people together, I feel sometimes a bit alone in the process. So it's nice to be a part of this kind of group as well, and for me to hear those words. So thank you to everyone for sharing and being a part of it. So with that, I hope we can do more types of things in the future, and I hope you all have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you very much, Tara. Appreciate it.
You. Bye.